G'day and Merry Christmas, you filthy Bomber fans. We are embracing the holiday season. We are welcoming the festivities. We are today analysing Essendon's list player by player with a little Christmas twist. So what we're going to be doing here over the course of 2 videos in the next few days, we are going to be analysing Essendon's list one by one, player by player, youngest to oldest. We are going to be talking about every player and highlighting their weaknesses, or I guess in this case, what they're going to be asking Santa for in 2026, or what they're going to want to be improving on their game in 2026. Now, I know that this is a very similar video idea to what Fiona from Bomber Banter just posted on her 15 Debutants of Christmas series. I had this idea, I swear. She was just much quicker to post it than I was, so go check her videos out. They are very good. Let's get into this one. Now, when I said we're going to be talking about the entire Essendon team, I may have lied a little bit. We are not going to be talking about the national draftees because I've spoken about them enough already, and I do have some debutant or potential debutant videos coming out soon. So we're going to be kicking it off with Zak Johnson, who was in 2025 the youngest player in the AFL, not even Essendon's team, but in the AFL. He's a fun one because with Zak Johnson, you got someone who you can see his strengths so clearly, there in picture on the footy. He is a lovely kick of the ball, probably as it stands right now, one of the best kicks in Essendon's team. He didn't play much last year, and I think there was a bit of conjecture and discourse about that because, I mean, look, you see him on the footy, you see what he can do with it. He is clearly AFL ready, but the reason I guess he didn't play last year was, well, because he probably needs to become more defensively accountable, and that's what I've got his wish list, his Christmas wish list as for this video. Zak Johnson is a defender, that's the thing, and to be a defender, you've got to be able to defend. Like, I think that makes perfect sense when you say it out loud, and that's why, even though I love the look of Johnson and I wanted to see more of him in 2025, I wasn't really that mad at Scott and the team selection committee for, seeing less of him. Now, keep in mind, the guy did also have a limited preseason. He was younger than everyone else in the competition. The fact that he even got game time for me is a bonus, especially because now he is fully fit and can get more time on the track, before the start of the 2026 season. But I think for me, if I'm still seeing Johnson lagging behind defensively, it's probably for the best that he remains in the VFL for a little bit longer. Yes, he's a lovely kick of the footy, one of the best in the team, but I think in our defence, we need more stability and reliability back there. And with Zak Johnson, look, I'd say he's reliable with ball in hand. He's one of the best kicks in our team, but he is not a reliable defender right now. And you saw that in the VFL. I talked about it a lot in the VFL recap videos that I did last year. I think he's not quite there when he's chasing his opponents and chasing the footy. He needs to brush up defensively, I think, a bit. But hopefully Santa can bring that for him. But yeah, for Zak Johnson in 2026, he needs to become more defensively accountable. Angus Clarke, and now an obvious one would be to, I guess, build some more muscle on those bones, but I don't want to be talking about players' bodies non-stop in these videos because with Essendon, we could have half the team here and talk about their fitness is what they need in 2026. The guy is skinny, he needs more muscle, but I'm going to talk about something else instead with Angus Clarke that I noticed in 2025. Look, I'm going to start by saying I love the look of Clarke. I think he's an awesome talent, and it's also great because it's kind of hard to lock Clarke down to one position because he's so good down back, so good on the wing. Obviously kicked 3 goals on debut. But if I'm looking at Angus Clarke and what he needs to improve or what he's going to be asking Santa for, I think it's probably he needs to maybe improve his composure a little bit on the footy. I love this guy's drive and his energy with ball in hand. He really does. He's a high meters gain player when he's at his best. He can obviously run all day. He's really athletic and really smart with his two-way running positioning. But there were times, both when he was on the wing and down back, where he would tuck the ball, try and barge through some players. Even sometimes when he was unlucky to be pinned down holding the ball, because he was at times, there was, I think, a 2-span game where he would, he got about 4 or 5 holding the ball calls against him, which were just not there. But even in those cases, he was still pretty aggressive and maybe too aggressive sometimes when taking the game on. Even with his ball use, kicking the footy, he didn't always take the time required to survey his options. I think because his natural instinct is to just go and drive the ball forward, we maybe see him lack composure a tiny bit. So when I'm looking at Angus Clarke, it's composure for me. It's definitely something that comes with time and experience at the level. The guy's barely played 10 games of footy, 13 or 14. But yeah, for me, I'd be happy to see a much more trustworthy Angus Clarke in 2026. I think there are serious aspects of his game that you can trust already, and you're already seeing his leadership grow on the track as well, which is crazy for a 19-year-old. I think this guy is one of the brightest talents in our team right now, and he's going to be an even brighter talent if we see in 2026 2026 him become a more reliable and trustworthy player with ball in hand. Rhys Unwin, look, I said I wouldn't talk about players' bodies too much because it's a bit of a cop-out to just talk about these kids and ask them to, grow size or improve their endurance and whatnot. But with Rhys Unwin, you do just want to see this guy grow a bit more muscle. He is, as of right now, skin and bones. He is very skinny, very lean, very easy to bowl over, and you saw that a lot in the VFL. Not as much in the AFL, I guess because it was a small sample size, only a couple of games. But yeah, the guy needs to build some muscle. The thing is, though, with Rhys Unwin is that you can't just put players like Rhys Unwin in the gym and ask them to become, full-time bodybuilders and jacked out of their minds, because that's going to take away a lot of his game. If he is to become a 100 keg, bodybuilder type athlete, it's going to take away his agility and his ground level movement, which is his major strength. His lateral movement and his agility in close and personal is genuinely unbelievable sometimes. Like, you don't know how he is so fleet of foot and so quick with his thinking and his mind. He's crafty, but he's also got the agility to match on ground level. So with Rhys Unwin, you want him to build a bit more muscle so he can be, not that compact player closer to ground, but I guess a bit more sturdy and reliable when the ball is at the coalface, because at the moment he's a bit too easy to bowl over. But you don't want him building too much muscle, because that'll take away his biggest strength, which is his agility and lateral movement. So it's a bit of a balancing game with players like Rhys Unwin at this age. Jayden Nguyen, one of the funnest players to watch last year. He is excellent defensively already. He had great roles on players like Tom Papley and Jack Higgins. I love his attack on his opponents. I love that he throws his body around. He doesn't really care about his own safety. He is genuinely one of the bravest players when defending. He goes back with the flight, puts his head in first at contests. He is a bloody tough kid, Jayden Nguyen. I think what I'd like to see is him implement a bit more of that bravery to win the footy, because I noticed quite often he was holding himself back from really attacking the football when he was in isolation. I think this is a player who knows that he can match it physically at the level with his work rate with his opponents, and he's great defensively at attacking his defenders, but maybe he doesn't quite have the confidence when the footy is in dispute to win the ball. He'd rather stop his opponent winning the ball, and you can see that with his accumulation. He averaged about 2 kicks a game in the AFL. He's got to bump those numbers up in the coming years. I personally, I do think he wasn't quite ready to play AFL footy, and that's why he was probably focusing so hard on the defensive side of his game. I think if we only saw him play in the VFL, this wouldn't be as much of an issue, because he did win a bit more of the footy in the VFL, and he did so in his draft year as well. But when he plays AFL, or if he plays AFL footy in 2026, I'd like to see him bump up an extra 4 to 5 disposals per game. I know we shouldn't be judging based on stats, but you'd like to see players like Jayden Nguyen a bit more comfortable and confident when the footy is in their hands, or I guess comfortable in winning the footy itself. Archie Day-Wicks. What I want to see from Archie Day-Wicks is him reignite the spark. Now, he's a really interesting player, Archie Day-Wicks. I'm always fascinated, and I love looking at players compared to, where they are now compared to their draft years. And Archie Day-Wicks in his draft year was kind of like he was genuine, like an X-Factor Isaac Heaney type player. Not a direct comparison, but it's that type of player where around the ground he is so exciting, so just X-Factor. He can do it in the air, do it on ground level, kicked goals from ridiculous angles, and that's just not at all what we saw from Archie Day-Wicks, even in the VFL in 2025. I think the biggest glimpse we got was that Sydney goal, his first goal in AFL footy, where he cut through a few players and snapped it, along the ground on Marvel Stadium. But we never really saw that spark and that X factor in the VFL, which is where I expected to see a bit of it in 2025. Instead, we saw him kind of result to be that system player who's really good in a system, finding holes. He's good with his left boot and knows what to do with the footy, and that's why he got a game earlier than other draftees. Remember, this guy made his debut before the injury crisis, and that's because he knows how to play in an AFL system, and he's genuinely crafty with the footy. But what he was really lacking for me, and this is why I'm fascinated about the draft, and that's why I want to see more of this from Archie Day-Wicks, is that spark that he had when he was in his draft campaign, because this guy was a high-flying mark. He was flying for the footy, kicking ridiculous goals. He was a genuine X-Factor player. We didn't see much of that in 2025. I'd like to see a bit more of it in 2026. Kayle Gerreyn. Now, the obvious one here is this guy's tank. He really he needs to build his tank. He is a lovely kick of the footy. His fundamentals for footy are great. You know, he not only reads the ball really well, but his kicking on both sides of his body, his left and right, is genuinely great. Another thing we could highlight is maybe his intent when kicking the footy. I think this is someone who thrives a bit more under pressure, because when he has a bit more time to kick, he leans back, maybe takes a bit more time and fluffs a few chances, especially in the defensive half when he was playing back there. There were a few turnovers that I didn't like, but the main one for Kayle Gerreyn in 2026 is improving that fitness. This guy is, I'd say quite comfortably, he is the least fit player in our team right now. He was struggling to finish 2K time trials last year. He's improved his fitness a bit more, which is good for this preseason, but he's still someone who really needs to do a lot more work if he wants to be that contest-to-contest aerial presence, especially that you need for a defender who really does need to work really hard to get from contest to contest. So right now, Kayle Gerreyn doesn't have an AFL-ready tank. If he wants to play footy in 2026, he needs to do a bit more to build on that tank. Zak Kako, I mean, this guy's already had his Christmas wishes answered. I really loved his debut season. I thought he was a great player and just so energetic and lively to watch, and got better as the year went along, which I really, really love. What I want from Zak Kako in 2026, and what he's going to be asking Santa, is for more of the footy. He's probably going to ask for a few more footies in his stocking. This guy is better, or the team is better, when Zak Kako has the ball in his hands. That's why his games are, when he gets those 15 to 20 touch games, the team is usually doing better. 19 touches and 2 goals against Carlton, 17 touches and a goal in 2 separate games against the Gold Coast Suns. When Zak Kako is getting plus 15 disposals, he is usually amongst our best players, and that's great, because it shows that, he's not only high impact, and he doesn't need heaps of the footy to have an impact on games like we saw later in the year, but when it's finding more of the footy is never a bad thing with a player like Zak Kako. He's not someone who's going to waste it. He's not going to get cheap possessions. He's a genuinely dangerous player with ball in hand, not even inside 50. He didn't kick that many goals in 2026. I could have had scoreboard impact down here, but I think having Zak Kako delivering the ball inside 50 is just as important. So if Zak Kako can win more of the footy, find more of the footy in 2026, Essendon are going to be a better team. Archie Roberts, he made 2025 enjoyable at times, which is a tough ask because it really wasn't an enjoyable year for Bomber fans. But Archie Roberts was one of the silver linings, obviously finished second in the best and fairest at just 19 years of age. That is crazy. He's already a tough, reliable general back in that back line. He's already a leader of the club at 19 or 20 now, which is crazy. Some say he's a future captain of the club, potentially. With Archie Roberts, what you want to see from him to take that next step forward and become not just a good player for the Bombers, but in the competition, is really just reduce the clangers. I think with Archie Roberts, it's if you brush up that kicking and become a more consistent and reliable ball user, because right now, at his best, he is a good kick. We know that he's a good kick, but he is prone to a clanger or two. We saw quite a few times that he would scrub the ball along the floor, kick it off the side of his boot. Even his best highlights of the year, some of those movements through traffic where he'd, swing through about 5 or 6 players, they resulted in a rushed kick that turned the ball over. And for someone who wins the footy as much as he does, I think he was one of our highest ball winners for the year, it would be great to trust him more with the footy. So yeah, for Archie Roberts to take the next step forward, we do need to see him reduce the clangers, even 2 less clangers a game for Archie Roberts, and we're gold with him using the ball back there, because at his best, or most of the time, he is a reliable kick of the footy. Vigo Visentini was a really hard player for me to judge here, because it's like, I look at Vigo Visentini and you see his 2025 season. I mean, he clearly wasn't ready for AFL footy. I think that almost goes without saying. And you saw that when he played against, guys like Luke Jackson and got absolutely towelled up. And that's nothing against Vigo. Like, rucks don't take 1 to 2 years to come good. They usually take 4 to 5. They're usually 23, 24 when they start really being AFL ready. Even Nick Bryan is still kind of developing as he goes along, and he's got an extra 2 or 3 years ahead of Vigo in the system. So for Vigo to even play footy in 2025, I think it showed him how much work he needs to do on his ruck craft. But I'm not going to say that that's what he needs to improve, because I think he's getting there. I really like what I see from Vigo in the VFL. I think his ruck craft is really great for a player of his age. What I want to see from Vigo in 2026, or what he might want to see improve in his own game, is his forward craft. I think for Vigo to take that next step forward in the future, not in 2026, but in the future, he might need to have a bit more bows up his sleeve is what I was about to say. Arrows to his bow. I forgot the saying, guys. He's going to have to improve on more aspects to his game, not just be a one-dimensional ruckman. For Vigo to be a better player in the future, it would be a great thing in 2026 if he was able to really hone in on his forward craft and develop more as a forward to become not just a ruckman, but a ruckman who can play in the forward line as well. That not only helps Vigo as a player and improves his, I guess, durability as well, because he can rest up forward, but versatility as a player, but it also helps the team and gives us more, chances and varieties with our ruck setup to have that dual ruck setup. It can allow Vigo to play in the future with Bryan potentially, or Lockie Blackiston, or another ruckman that we potentially pick up. So I think for Vigo Visentini in 2026, it's a bit of a rogue one, but I want to see him improve his forward craft. Nathaniel Caddy, Mr. Nate Caddy. This is a player right here. I think we got to start by saying Nate Caddy is one of the major reasons for Essendon fans to stay in love with the club right now. Young players like Nate Caddy are really driving this club forward for the future and keeping us fans motivated. This guy is genuinely exciting. He is the type of player that can genuinely do it all. His movement is unbelievable. His movement in the air on ground level, his running ability, his skill with the footy. This guy is a genuinely exciting player for the future. So to start with, we just need to see this guy stay fit for as long as possible. And something to do with that could maybe be him improving his balance or keeping his feet in marking contests. Now, he has worked externally on tumbling and rolling when landing, when hitting the ground, to protect his body in the long term. And that is part of what I mean when I say keep his feet, because this will protect his body if he is to, become a more balanced player in marking contests and not land on his back, on his head, on every part of his body. But also it does just help the club for a key forward to be a more balanced, more reliable player in a marking contest. Right now, Nate Caddy flies at everything. He flies from left, from right, from behind. He tries to take speckies. He tries to impact marking contests, which is awesome. You love that from a player, but it means nothing if you don't take the mark, you don't bring it to ground, and you hit the ground with your body. And when that happens, that is a coach's nightmare. It is rule number one in any sport: keep your feet, because when you hit the ground, you give the opposition the perfect opportunity to rebound effectively. And defending, attacking transition is something Essendon have never been able to do, or at least in the last few years. And when your key forwards, when your mobile forwards like Nate Caddy hit the ground, it makes it really hard. So for the club, for Caddy, for his future, he really does need to keep his feet in marking contests a little bit more, because he does hit the ground a bit too much. Now, guys, I don't know about you, but all this footy talk has made me a little bit thirsty. And something that I used to do with my player ratings videos is halfway through, I would stop for a cheeky little drinks break, usually alcoholic, and we're running it back. Today we are going festive. We have got some Baileys, we've got some red liqueur, we are having a jam donut. Now, while I'm creating this monstrosity or concoction, whatever you want to call it, leave some comments down below of drinks you want me to try. Keith, your legend, put out the best one, the winner from the player ratings videos. Any cocktails or something that you want me to try, leave your comments down below. Here is a jam donut shot. Let's just run it down there. Beautiful. I give my jam donut shot a Christmas out of 10. I've had many of these in the last few days. Let's get back into it. Okay, we're up to Lewis Hayes. Now with Lewis Hayes, he's a genuinely promising defender. That's the thing. And you look at his defensive attributes, there's not really any weaknesses you can hone in on. What I'm actually going to throw out there, and this might be a little bit rogue because I don't think he's a bad kick, but I think he could sharpen up his ball use. And if he's to do that, you can see a real way for him to break into that team, or I guess contend with Ben McKay for that spot in the starting 23, because the big weakness with Ben McKay's game, spoiler for my senior video that I'm going to do in a few days, is his ball use. And with Lewis Hayes, it's not a weakness, but if he can really hone in on his ball use and be a bit more like Zach Reid, who is trustworthy with the footy, really good with the footy, then you're looking at a way for him to break into that best 23 and stay there is the more important thing. Of course, he can break into the 23, but for Lewis Hayes to stay there, I think a big tick and a big a string to his bow would be if he could become a better kick of the footy. Speaking of kicks of the footy, Elijah Tsatas, this is a pretty obvious one. This guy, he does need to tidy up his kicking. It's not like Lewis Hayes where improving his kicking is a bonus and it would improve his game. Elijah Tsatas needs to improve his kicking. He needs to become a tidier kick of the footy. The good news is we've seen signs that he's attempting to do that this preseason, and from what I've seen at training, he does look a punchier kick of the footy. I think the issue with with Elijah Tsatas was that he would kick under the footy. He'd get a lot of height on the footy where he really want it to be a bit more punchier. This pre-season, albeit with less pressure than in an AFL game or VFL game, we've seen Elijah Tsatas become a sharper and punchier kick of the footy. The question is going to be whether it stays there for the AFL matches. So I think he needs to keep working on it, become a better kick of the footy, tidy up his kicking, not just reduce the clangers, but genuinely tidy up all aspects of his kicking, become a better kick of the footy. That is the big weakness of Elijah Tsatas' game right now. Archie May, this is another really tough one. I think with Vigo Visentini, you're looking at someone with a small sample size, someone you haven't seen heaps of, because, you know, with Vigo, we only saw him really play as that main ruck at the start of, or I guess a bit into 2025. Archie May, we've only seen a few games of, so it's tough to really nail down what he has to improve without going back to his waffle footy. But if I look at his AFL footy, the games he played, even the VFL a little bit too, I think what I'd want from Archie May is to improve consistency, and I don't just mean consistency among games with his output with the footy and the damage that he provides. There's a few things to it. So for starters, I mean, we'll start with that. The guy kicked 3 goals in a quarter against the Gold Coast Suns and didn't do heaps in the rest of that game. He can clearly turn a game on his head at its best, and we've seen that in that Gold Coast game, but he doesn't have that quarter-to-quarter consistency that you really want from a big-bodied key forward like Archie May. So if he can improve his quarter-to-quarter consistency, that would be great, but it's also his consistency with his awareness and his positioning, because I think this guy is a really smart leader at his best. Leader as in leading towards the footy, marking leader, not a mental leader. But even at times, just watching him in the VFL and AFL, you see him get jumbled up a tad with his other marking forwards, his teammates. He got jumbled up with their positions. He ran in their leads. They ran in his. It was an issue with, I guess, cohesion, because he hadn't played with those forwards much, but it was also an issue with his consistency, because there were times where he was a genuinely good leader towards the footy as well. So I think with Archie May, it's improving consistency in more ways than one. Cillian Bourke, our new Irishman, he would put me to shame drinking, because I've had 2 shots and I'm already feeling it a little bit. Cillian Bourke, he actually hasn't played a game yet, so I might be cheating having him in here, but I haven't spoken about him heaps on the channel yet. I think with Cillian Bourke, and what I saw from him at training, is that he really does not know how to kick the footy yet. Unfortunately, that's just true, and it's not like it's not a hot take. The guy has barely kicked a footy in his life. He's been living in Ireland playing Gaelic footy, where, yes, he's good on both sides of his foot with a Gaelic ball, but that is a round ball. It's very different to a footy. What this guy just needs to do is focus on footy fundamentals. I mean, he's a project player. He's a Category B rookie. He was playing Gaelic footy a few months ago. Now he's been forced over to the AFL, playing here with us, away from everything. He's an athlete. He's a genuine athlete, but he has to focus on his footy fundamentals in the next couple of seasons. I don't expect him to play AFL footy anytime soon. Genuinely, he is not a good kicker of the footy yet, but the good news is these Irish guys, especially these hard-working ones, from what I've heard, he is a genuinely hard-working and determined young man. They work really hard and learn quickly. So hopefully in a few months we talk about Cillian Bourke again. We see him in the VFL and we've seen genuine improvement with his footy fundamentals, because that's what he has to work on. He really does need to learn how to kick the footy. Liam McMahon, this guy is one of the more divisive players on our list right now. I mean, there's plenty of disagreement in the fan base about Liam McMahon and his spot on our list. You guys would know. There's been plenty of discussions in the comments in some of my videos below about Liam McMahon. He's probably been one of the more talked about players in the last few months, and I might have started that by delisting him in my out of contract video that I did a few months ago. But say what you want about him, and I've said plenty. Being able to kick 12 goals in 7 games in the least cohesive forward line in the competition is genuinely impressive. This guy's game inside 50 it's great. You know, he knows where to find where to be when the footy's inside 50. He knows how to kick goals, and he's very straight and accurate with his goal kicking. But I think the main issue with Liam McMahon, and why I don't see him being a genuine long-term option at the footy club right now, unless he improves this, is the fact that he can't really impact the game outside of the forward 50. I think every single player must be able to impact the game in multiple zones across every position. That's the way the game is trending. You need versatility in your team. And if Liam McMahon isn't inside 50, it is hard to know what he is doing for the team. That sounds really harsh. I know it does. But I mean, you pair that with the fact that he is so good inside 50, you can see a place for him as a depth player with his ability to hit the scoreboard and his reliability. You know, when he kicks 1 goal, he usually kicks 2 or 3. But when he's not kicking goals, he's getting subbed off because he's not doing doing a lot more. He's not really a player that you see impact the game outside of the forward 50. Maybe you throw him behind the ball, see how he goes. He's played defense a bit in the VFL, but yeah, I think for Liam McMahon to really succeed at AFL level and keep his spot on the list past this season, because he's out of contract at the end of 2026, I think this guy just really needs to impact the game outside of the forward 50. He needs to, maybe it's improving his tank, maybe it's improving his aggression towards the ball when it's, in areas of the ground outside of the forward 50, but yeah, it's something he definitely needs to work on 100%. Archie Perkins, another divisive player on Essendon's list. He's one of our major game breakers at his best, Archie Perkins. He's one of 8 players in the last 2 years to get maximum Brownlow votes. That is saying something. It means that at his best, this guy he has the potential to be a best on ground player. You know, some of those games, round 1 last year against Hawthorn was genuinely awesome, and even some games in 2025. I remember the North Melbourne game where he had that awesome first half. I think he ended the year pretty well from memory as well for the Bombers in 2025, but the issue is he really does go through some quiet patches, and I don't know if it's mental demons in his head. I don't know if it's, something to do with the game plan that doesn't suit him, but this guy really does need to reduce the quiet patches that he has, because when he has them, he really goes missing. This is a guy who, at his best, is genuinely one of our best players. I know that sounds weird for a guy like Archie Perkins, who is so often not at his best, but when he is at his best, he has been the best on ground. That is a fact. He's won Brownlow votes, coaches votes. He is a genuinely game-breaking player at his very best. The issue is we've rarely seen that over the last few years. This is a guy who we know he can be something. We just need to untap it. We need to find it somehow, and we haven't found it yet. So Archie Perkins really needs to reduce the quiet patches in his game to take that next step forward. Zak Reid, this guy needs to stay fit. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, he's played 19 games in his career since 2021. That is crazy, especially because 10 of those games came in 2025. And that's his biggest season to date, 10 games, which is... It's annoying because you see him play. I mean, that back half of his run last year after the Port Adelaide game where he moved on to Mitch Georgiades, he was awesome. He was genuinely our best player for a period of time there. For about a month, Zak Reid was genuinely our best player on the park. He is awesome in the air, so good by foot, so rangy, so mobile, makes our defense better. The issue is he can't stay fit. His body has really let him down over the years. He hasn't had a full season ever, I don't think. It is frustrating, and imagine, it's frustrating for us. Imagine what it's like for Zak Reid, who knows how good he is at his best. Genuinely, I'm going to say, I think genuinely all-Australian at his best, and that I don't think that's a hot take at all. I think he's one of our very best players when on the park, and we saw that in genuine patches last year. The issue is his soft tissue injuries, whatever it is, he just can't stay fit. We need Zak Reid to stay fit in 2026. I really can't handle more Zak Reid injuries in 2026. My heart cannot handle it, so Santa, please give us a fit Zak Reid for 2026. Nik Cox, I mean, you could copy and paste. This is a guy who he struggles to stay fit. I'm going to say something else here, and I don't want to sound harsh because this guy has had some concussion troubles. He's had some head knocks that have really set his career back a long way, and you really you want the best for a player. Well, not a player, but a person. First things first, this guy is a human being, and we really hope he can stay healthy after footy, because concussion is no laughing matter. But if this guy is to improve as a footballer in the coming years, I think he needs to improve his resilience. And this is something that maybe it comes with his frame. He's got a leader frame, so there's a bit more risk of injury, and we've seen that. I mean, I don't want to harp on about the concussion, but it was tough to see how the concussion came late in that 2024 season when it came. I'm not discounting the fact that he was concussed, but there are players who are more robust than Nik Cox who would cop the knocks that he does and get back up and play on. And Nik Cox, unfortunately, maybe it's his frame, I don't know what it is, but he is not as resilient as other footballers right now. And I know that's a harsh thing to say. I don't think it's untrue. I think this guy is a genuinely talented player, by the way, and we saw that in 2021. We saw it in 2024 in patches as well. This guy he kicked 3 or 4 goals in a couple of games in 2024 while also playing in defence other weeks. He's versatile, he's tall, he's skilled on both sides of his body, he's a good kick and a good runner. Unfortunately, he is just not resilient enough right now for the AFL. First things first though, I don't care about this guy if he's a bad player or anything, or if he's an unsuccessful player. What we want is this person to be healthy now and in the future. That's all we want from Nik Cox in 2026, is that he stays healthy as a person, not just as a player. Nicholas Bryan Saint Nick. I could have done that for Nik Cox too, damn it, but it's only just registered in my head. Apologies, Nik Cox, you're a saint as well. But for Saint Nick Bryan, I think what we need is, or for starters, this guy is a good ruck. I think I mean, it's not a hot take to say this guy isn't a star of the competition, or you know, I don't see him as a potential star of the competition. Apologies, Nick, if you're watching, you're probably not. But what I think we need for Nick Bryan to become a better role-playing ruck and a better, you know, a best 23 ruckman is to be more versatile in different positions, and a good way to do that is to become a threat in the air. I don't think Nick Bryan right now is a threat aerially aside from his height. I don't think that's a hot take, but I don't see this guy as a marking threat right now. I think he's a marking threat when he's on smaller opponents, when he's positioned behind the ball and the ball is kicked towards him with smaller opponents around him, but that's because of his height. I think when he's up against taller players, you know, fellow ruckmen, other players, like key forwards, key defenders, he's not quite a threat and he's not quite a marking option, I don't think. He's not someone that you'd really look to target when going inside 50 or look to really rely upon when he's behind the ball. I think for Nick Bryan to improve and become a solidified best 23 ruckman, he needs to become a better threat in the air, or a better aerial presence as a ruckman. Because look, I think Lockie Blackiston, I did my best 23 video recently. I've got Lockie Blackiston starting in the best 23 because I personally see more to Lockie Blackiston as a player outside of his ruck capabilities. I think being a ruckman is more than just being a tap ruck, a stoppage ruckman. You need to be better and more versatile around the ground, and I see Lockie Blackiston as the more versatile player of the two. So Nick Bryan, to become a more versatile player once he recovers from that ACL, needs to be a bit better in the air. And finally, Samuel Durham. Now, Sam Durham's an interesting one because you always feel bad talking down a player like Sam Durham. He's got weaknesses. Every player has weaknesses. But when you're a heart and soul player who just he wills himself to win the footy all the time, he is so tough. He's inspirational, Sam Durham. You feel mean talking bad, saying bad things about him, but you're going to for this video. So for Sam Durham, I think I look back to 2025, the preseason, what we were looking at there with his new role potentially in the forward line. I think for Sam Durham to take the next step forward and be a genuine star of the competition, not just Essendon, but of the competition, he needs to hit the scoreboard more. I remember in the preseason of 2025, we were talking about that new role where he was going to play at forward line a bit more, you know, play more midfield, but stay at home a bit forward when he's resting, not just on the bench, but deep in the forward line and be a marking target because he does have hops. I mean, Sam Durham's never kicked more than 10 goals in an AFL season. Last year, he kicked 8 goals, and I know that there were reasons for that. We obviously had injuries to the midfield, which meant we couldn't just keep moving our best midfielders out of there. There were also injuries to Sam Durham, who was playing injured for most of the year with that foot. But in 2026, if he is fit, and hopefully if our midfield is fit, I'd love to see that role, brought back. You know, Sam Durham resting deep in the forward line, being a genuine marking target, deep inside forward 50, kicking goals, hopefully. That's what I want to see from Sam Durham, because every midfielder should be able to kick goals, I think, or at least the damaging midfielders should be able to kick goals, and Sam Durham, his highest goal tally in a season to date is 10. Last year, he kicked 8. I think he needs to double that. I'd love to see Sam Durham kick 20 goals a year, and if he's doing that, he's becoming a genuine star of the competition. But guys, that is part 1 of my Christmas-themed player assessment videos done. I'm going to have part 2 out in the coming days, talking about the senior players. Less alcohol this time because, guys, I've got a secret. I've got a sneaky secret. I might have had a couple more jam donut shots off camera, and I'm feeling it. But now we await a new video. We await a new day, a new year soon as well. I'm just going to go. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Merry Christmas, by the way, guys. I don't know if I've said that yet. And as always, go Bombers.